Hello, everyone with the YouTube's lands. Today is a kind of a special thing, I guess. My good buddy Dante has was talking to me about a run that he was kind of going to put together for Group 3, and we got talking about a couple of things, and then like, you know what? Let's stop. Let's record this. We'll put it on the internet because hopefully one of you guys out there is going to have the capability of pulling something interesting or helpful from this. So, hello, Dante.
What's up, Bamce?
Not much. I also have super secret, not super secret, super special show friend. I don't know what you want me to call you on this because I don't think
The name on Discord's going to work just fine.
Jupiter.
Jupiter? Yeah?
Jupiter. Okay. Um, she is also hanging out, and because she bugs me about stuff because she's a super fan, and a an outsider's opinion that is not part of the group or running the group could also be helpful.
No
Where,
pressure on me, but hi.
yeah, no, be helpful. God damn it.
I will try.
Good. Um, so yeah, our conversation today, I believe, started off when you were asking me about hooding and kind of wanting to work that into a run idea. Am I correct in remembering that? This was a couple of hours ago.
Yeah, I had the idea of presenting a run that would give the players some good feels as a hooding run, and then we started exploring what a hooding run actually means
Yeah,
before we started fleshing out my run idea.
excellent. Um, so while I talk about hooding for a little bit, do you want to start writing out your run idea on the notes there so that we can put it in the video
Sure.
description for the future? Um, Hooding is kind of based on like Robin Hood and Robin Hooding and in your neighborhood and that kind of stuff. They are typically lower paying jobs that usually end up as good feels kind of runs. Uh, Maybe a contact calls you up asking for assistance with a favor. Maybe, you go to do a thing and you find out that there's a kindly old lady involved that you can help out instead of, just evicting her from her house or something along those lines. Um, I actually asked this of the Shadowcasters Discord channel earlier to just kind of get a broader view on what people might think of the term of hooding. As I am unprepared, I will scroll back up to see what other people had to say. My good buddy Damien of the Violent Wave podcast made mention that straight out hooding is when you do a job that isn't for or about the pay, usually for a good feeling sort of thing, sticking it to the bad guys, taking a payless or a favor job for some small betterment upon the sixth world. Could just be for a moral reason, like, beating up on Humanus or something like that. Something the runner just can't walk away from and look at himself in the mirror for not doing something without surrendering some part of what makes him human. Hooding can be extended to helping a buddy grind his vendetta too, if it's against the right sort of people. Um, which I was like, damn, that's a pretty good description. Um, but then the conversation that Dante and I began to have involved his Johnson for his run. It was going to be, I believe it was some kind of researcher or a doctor you had in mind.
That was the initial idea, but I like the how we eventually got to giving the players more of a moral quandary
Yeah,
between going with an original, like going with the Johnson who hired you and offered a substantial amount of Nuyen to go through with this job. But once you're in it and you start unraveling the details of it and what the greater implications are, you're left up to making a decision.
yeah. There was a whole. If I could go down and get like 30 Shades of Grey and slap it on what we talked about, it was wonderful.
Well,
Um,
it also ties in really well because recently in the Discord we just had uh, I guess a heated discussion might be the most appropriate description about losing control of yourself versus and what it means. Like I said, I would rather as a character be dead than lose complete control of me and my free will, and that turned into a big discussion with the other players. So where we're currently looking at where we are in fleshing this run out, it's going to bring that full circle into the run itself.
which is beautiful. I always like to preach that Shadowrun is everywhere in your daily life. You just kind of have to train yourself to think of it or to notice it, as the case may be. Because yesterday, when I got in my car to leave work, the song "One" by Metallica came on, and I was struck with inspiration. It's like, man, I could totally work this into a Shadowrun, which we'll come back to later, and hopefully I'll remember to put the link in the description so that you can quickly, easily find it and jump on over to it. But you started off with a researcher, this street docky kind of person that was asking for help to recover a prototype or a research data. The details weren't nailed down yet. And he was offering up the runners his retirement fund that I believe he had scraped together.
Yeah, just general savings. This is everything I have. This research was my ticket.
Exactly. And at that point, I proposed an idea, and this is where the song comes in. What if the research thing that he was working on isn't a what, but a who? Because in the song, it talks about a war veteran who was injured by a landmine, loses his arms, his legs, is blinded, and basically deafened, and is more or less a torso that is still alive, but what life is it? And I told him, let's take this one more step. Let's make that torso a technomancer, so that this way people like operating on technomancers because they're trying to figure out how they work. And here's this guy that, to most medical scanning, appears brain dead. So, what if he actually wasn't, and he was kind of just linked into the resonance a little bit? And Jupiter, I'm getting some echo back from you, I think.
I'm muted, so it shouldn't be me.
I don't know, I keep hearing myself, and as much as I, like to hear my own
Enjoy
voice.
it.
Yeah, right? um, it's just weird because your thing lights up for it. I don't get it. So the idea then became was the doctor wants to get this torso back because it's part of his research, and he doesn't really get that there is somebody actually still alive in there and still like conscious. People donate their bodies to science all the time, and the fact that this guy's a technomancer just happens to be a thing to fit the universe a little bit better than just a random person. And that's where we got into a lot of the gray morality of it. Because we have a technomancer on our team who has the skin link echo. So what happens when, that technomancer gets close to him, maybe feels something a little off, and then touches him. And all of a sudden, this guy who's been trapped in his body, going through whatever experiments, has a voice that he can connect to. And the only thing he wants is for it to end. What do you do?
And then the dilemma gets pretty big
It's
because
huge.
you are going to be going against the Johnson, potentially risking your reputation and forfeiting the Nuyen if you help the guy. And I mean, that's just your first binary decision, and then it just goes down the rabbit hole from there. Helping the guy, is that ending his life like he wants? Do you let him keep going through this experiment because maybe it's helping technomancers in general or humanity at large to do the experimentation? So are we talking about the right thing on an individual level, on a massive level, or a personal level? And then, because our specific group has several different moralities and perspectives, I imagine it's going to turn into an interesting interplay.
And it's not we kept talking about it a little bit more and got into the like, well, what if you change the rules of engagement? What if you try to convince the torso that, hey, like, okay, we can talk, we can work this out. What if you somehow convince him to stop resisting on like a subconscious level or a conscious level from what the doctor is doing and just let the experiments run their course. Suddenly the doctor has a breakthrough and things seem to be going a lot easier with his research. Maybe you go to the doctor and you tell him, yo, there's still a man alive in there. How does that change how things play out? There's the additional question of how did the torso originally get taken from him and who did it? Was it a technomancer group who was trying to save one of their own who had gone missing? Was it a random act of violence and they're like, this will be fun, let's just take it? Maybe it's in like an iron lung machine of life support, and whoever took it doesn't even know that there's a person in there. They just took it because it's a big, fancy, medical, expensive-looking thing. It's like, yeah, no, I can sell that. Um, Maybe it's just a Shadowrunner. Somebody heard about his research and said, nope, we got to shut that down. Go take it. I don't care what happens to it. And all kinds of wonderful things can happen. And then I'm trying to remember some of the other questions you asked me um, about the specifics. But if you're still writing, I can keep running on at the mouth.
I can certainly take a break from typing.
Sure.
So that gives us a concept and a direction and a way to go, but then there's a lot of abstracts as far as actually doing that run that I'm shaky on.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I want to try and avoid the group having some sort of paralysis trying to come up with a decision on what to do, but I don't want to steal that opportunity of discussing it from them either.
Right.
So I don't know if there is some point as a GM you would insert an outside influence to kind of hurry them along into making a decision, or if you would just let them run with it until whenever.
There's a couple of things on this. One is timing. If you come up to the big reveal at the end of a session, play like 10, 15 more minutes so that that big reveal can come out, and then you have between this section and next session to just talk about it in the Discord channel or however your table at home communicates between games. That's one. And then there's two outside influences we can set up. The first one is the doctor. And this is our first interaction with the team. So how that doctor portrays himself, the Johnson, that is, does he portray himself as a guy who's at the end of his rope, frazzled, and is like, I just need to, this is my one last thing? Or does he portray himself as the cold, calculating, in control kind of guy? That can give them all kinds of wonderful information to kind of base their decisions off of. Do they believe that this guy is really gonna do something for the greater good? You can seed that idea. Like if you paint him as a really compassionate man in the beginning, you plant the idea that if they come up that like, hey, what if we just tell the doctor that he's actually still alive? Then maybe the doctor will stop his research because it's inhumane at that point. So, you paint him in a compassionate light at the beginning. Or you paint him in a villainous light, where maybe they do a little bit of research, maybe he made the news of doing some inhumane things and they took his medical license away, but he still keeps practicing. And that'll paint the light of like, oh, if we tell him he's still alive, he's just going to do even worse things to him because now he knows. Or it'll give him this like, we can't turn him back over because he's a monster.
Yeah.
And it just kind of changes how much information and the type of information they have when they come to that decision-making process can turn you from a split group into a 70-30 group, which is still but and it also kind of helps when you have those long discussions going on to maybe interrupt them and re-examine the facts or the information that they have, because sometimes you guys have been at it for a couple of hours or maybe even since last week, depending upon how long it goes. Stuff might have been forgotten. You might have forgotten that back in the beginning he seemed like a really compassionate man, or they may have forgotten that he's had his medical license revoked.
So, are you in this circumstance and situation? Are you having the Johnson and the doctor that they run into as the same individual?
Yeah, no, they would be the same guy. Or maybe even you could paint it slightly different, and maybe the doctor is there with somebody else, but the somebody else is the actual Johnson. He's just there as like the nervous dad in the waiting room. So
Gotcha. I guess how you run that depends a lot on your group. Would you tailor it to try and invoke a reaction from them? Like, for instance, one of the ones I typed up here is maybe it's a friend of the subject that the cops have given up on this missing persons report. Please help me find them, and you can stumble upon it that way. Now, the friend might not be involved in the experimentation phase of it,
you
but
you absolutely could. We could go through the contact list of the people involved in our game and see if one of them has a CyberDoc contact who calls them up, and maybe then it's that person who offers them the job, and then you kind of push in a slightly different angle because it's, man, I really want to help out my friend. One of the important things here that I do want to stress is if they go to lie to the Johnson and like say they get the torso and then they decide, you know what, this is not humane and we'll just kill it and say that whoever stole it was responsible. Don't
Mhm.
make them roll dice on that. You're going to punish them in other ways. You're going to maybe give them a notoriety just because for failing a run under suspicious circumstances. You
Yeah.
know, you don't need to be like, oh, well, they don't believe you and they're sending kill squads after you. In a heavy moral situation, you don't want to over
Yeah.
penalize them for it.
You want to let them make up their own mind on how to proceed with it because the world's going to react and they're going to have the consequences regardless.
Right. And you don't want them to worry about the out of character. You don't want them to worry about, man, I don't have any good lying dice to tell the Johnson that, man, we screwed up the job, when in reality they didn't, and they're just you don't want to punish them excessively for taking the moral high ground in a run that you're setting up to be a help a friend kind of thing.
So for our group in specific, because there seems to be a heavy motivation on acquiring a lot of Nuyen in short order, um, do you think it would be more prudent to approach it from that angle where maybe it's a corporation hiring us to steal somebody else's research and we discover this is what it is?
It's a
Or they tell us
funny
up front?
thing because Nguyen can change morals pretty quickly.
Exactly. And that's what makes the decision a little bit harder. Like if it's a feels good run and you're only going to get a couple thousand Nuyen a pop for it, it makes it a pretty easy decision to go with your morals.
Right. And that all kind of
Whereas,
comes into it. Like, what do you have in mind for the run itself? Like, do you want to make this a long, morally gray, showing people how terrible the world is kind of run? Or do you want to have it be a run that's about helping somebody out? Like, if we go with the contact, helping your contact out, but then feeling kind of scummy at the end. So it's like, yeah, man, I did you a favor, and man, it kind of sucked. You into some dark stuff, buddy. Um, to kind of just like, what's the thing you're trying to get across? If it is that the morals thing, then whichever way you go will. Because if you go more on the helping a friend, the lower paying job, you want the decision to let the guy go and let him die be okay. You don't want them to be like, man, I lost out on 50,000 Nuyen, but I got
yeah,
like 2 extra karma for it. Because you're probably going to give 6 or so karma for the run anyway if it's like a one session thing. But then if they like kill the guy, it's like, oh, I can give them like 3 or 4 more for doing the morally good thing. You give them that carrot because you're taking the money away a little bit.
So I guess the greater question there is, especially when it comes to building up GM trust and such,
Right.
would it be damaging to the GM player relationship to put them in a situation where they are not going to like either option because they're either losing out on a lot of Nuyen or they're compromising their ideals? Or should we do something where it's fairly easy to go with your ideals, but you're not going to feel good about how you have to do it?
Well, I believe you said something about the corpse stealing run you just went on about your morals and your ideals, or was that Jet?
Jet was going through it a little bit.
Okay, because I keep getting you two mixed up for no good reason. Um, the I feel like it depends upon the way you portray it. Like if you go with a lower reward New Year reward run, I always feel it's easier to skimp on my defenses because I don't have to make you work as hard for it. Which is why with the corpse run, it worked out pretty great because it was only like 6,000 Nuyen, and you guys didn't put up a you guys didn't have huge obstacles to overcome. It was a moderate rating host. There was a couple of guys, and you had a couple of different options for how you could have gone about it. If I am suddenly, if I would have paid you say 30,000 Nuyen ahead for that job, you'd have been like, that is easy money.
Yeah.
Um, that's
Now,
part of the communication is like the more money that I pay you, the more you're going to have to work for it.
and again, I don't have anywhere near the same GM experience as
Right.
either of the two of you. So my thoughts on this is even with a very mild amount of resistance going into it, if I'm offering say 15 to 20,000 a head, but now you're going to have to decide between taking the Nuyen or killing this guy, I feel like that's a lot to chew through and work through, even if you're not going to be rolling. Like, it's not necessarily opposition, but it is resistance in a way.
Yep, and that is the correct way of doing it. You are stressing the crew in a slightly different fashion, but you are still stressing them. Um, and let's also remember that it's not binary. It's not kill the guy or hand him over.
Well, yeah, it's
For
you could talk him into being it's do I do the right thing and not do the job for the Johnson,
right.
or do I do the job for the Johnson and kind of hate myself a little bit for doing it?
And there's another part that we mentioned here that we didn't really get into is, does the technomancer tell the team that they felt a connection when they touched the body?
That is also true.
Because if that never happens, if your technomancer keeps that to themselves, then you can't really fault the whole team for, because then it's just I found a body of a man that's being kept alive by a machine that doesn't seem to be in any capable methodology of communicating. And looking at the, like, if they have any medical skills and they look at the readouts on the thing, it shows that he's brain dead. You know,
So how like is this a run you just wouldn't really do without a Technomancer because then it becomes a lot less intricate, or would you tailor it so that the group can find out in a different way?
it depends. Like, there's other things that could be done. Like, the Technomancer thing is just a really good way um, to hide it and keep it kind of subtle. But like, if you make it obvious that the Technomancer angle increases the morality scale, because if it was very obviously a person who was alive and was just chopped up and was being used for experimentation, you're like, oh no, that's a person. That's mm-mm. Whereas, oh no, that says they're dead already. So like, I, I'm an organ donor. I don't know about you guys.
Yeah, I am.
See, you. So like, it's basically the same thing. Like when they cut up my body for science to find out how awesome I am, and how it works. Like uh, that's my contribution to humanity as a whole. So, um, detective answering all else, you increase that morality scale, increase your shades of gray. Whereas using somebody else, it's like you still have that choice there, but when it's more obvious like that, maybe you increase the Nuyen to kind of like, eh.
Yeah.
Um,
So, and again, this is less. This is just abstract thoughts.
yeah.
But using our group as an example, if we go in to do it, let's say Hex is never in a position to touch the guy.
So that's one of the things I mentioned somewhere. I don't remember where it was, but you never hide crucial information behind a dice roll.
Hmm.
Being a technomancer, they are acutely aware of the matrix as a whole. Like they just kind of experience it as their normal state of being. So you can kind of see, like when you walk into the scene and kind of go about it, maybe Hex notices that there's a something feels off digitally here, but nobody else really notices anything, and that gives you the opportunity for Hex to roll a matrix perception test, or maybe a computer plus resonance to get like that weirdo technomancer bullshit out of it.
Okay. So Hex would kind of perceive that something is weird to draw her into looking at it more.
Yeah, like I would be like, here's there's something strange going on here. Ask for that perception roll, and then depending upon how well that went, give more information
Okay.
with some leading statements. It's like you feel like it's coming from direction of thing, um, with obviously higher number of hits giving more clear information, trying to kind of coerce them into touching it.
Okay. Yeah, I think I don't know. It's a tough decision between if I put it out there, Nguyen versus or the Johnson versus not Johnson. We'll just call it. I feel like the decision will be a little more divisive if the Nguyen's higher, and our group could really kind of use some more grouping. Um,
And that's a completely legitimate line of thought. Because as much as I preach that like everybody at the table is an author to the story, somewhere along the lines you have to be genre savvy enough to get an idea of where the story is going to go and what you're putting out there. Um, Jupiter, you've been quiet. I'm sure you have things you want to ask.
Oh, I'm listening. I think I think Hex is going to be your linchpin in all of this,
Hmm.
especially how that player is playing that character.
Yeah, no, it'll be great because they have that backstory of being an escaped experiment themselves, and
Uh
suddenly look
huh.
what's put in front of you.
So very sympathetic. She always wants to do right. She's going to be the one that's going to push the rest of the team.
Hmm.
So that'll be interesting to see. Um, Thinking about the Johnson, what are you leaning toward right now, Dante, as far as the Johnson? I mean, if you had to decide right now, gun to your head.
gun to my head, I'm probably gonna go with somebody sympathetic to the experiment, who's paying everything they can scrape together, which to us really isn't much. Um, but we're looking to help them out. Sure, we'll look into it, and as we unravel and go through it, we discover this is what's going on.
Okay, so I know one of the players is looking for a hooding game. Uh, and I know it's going to sound sexist, and I apologize to everyone. But you have a bunch of men. They're your players, and they are suckers for a damsel in distress. And I would make that Johnson female, and I would play that up, and they'll want to say yes to taking that job no matter what you pay them.
Yeah, quite possibly. I mean, even Dante, who might be the most resistant to taking a job light on the Nuyen, if the group wants to do it, some Nuyen's better than none.
But Dante's not going to be there, so.
Well, just even if.
Was
Never know, maybe Bamce will step into Dante's shoes for the run.
No, I got an ace in the hole for you. Don't worry.
Okay.
Yeah.
Um, this is actually something I talked about with Jupiter earlier about the character that I'll be playing for this, which is not relevant to this discussion because you don't need to know that for this.
Oh yeah, that's fine.
Um, the was it Dante that had the cyberdoc with the?
Yeah.
Okay, because it could even work out that Dante calls up the team asking for a favor to go look into this, and Dante is like, I'm gonna stay with my contact because they were just broken into, they were just robbed or something. I'm gonna help them sort that out on this end. If you guys could look into this side of it for me.
Okay. Do you think we should let the group know up front that it's a person that's missing, or just go completely out and hype up the experiment angle and let them discover it as they're on the run?
Well, that is up to you. You said you wanted a more sympathetic Johnson. Is this Johnson ashamed of what they do? Are they ashamed that they might get found out? Are they um,
Well, in
looking
this
at it as like an
instance,
organ donor situation where, oh no, it's a person's brain dead, so this
well,
is all for the betterment of science.
in this instance, the Johnson, or at least how I'm envisioning it, the Johnson's different than the doctor that they're going to run into in the lab. So
Okay.
the Johnson may or may not know what's actually happening.
Now, in your mind, why were the Johnson and the doctor two different people?
Cut out a bit.
In your idea, why is it that the Johnson and the doctor are different people?
Well, there's got to have a reason to hire the group to look into it. If the Johnson is the doctor working on this technomancer, what reasoning does he have for hiring the group in the first place? If he has direct access,
Direct access to just the group?
the
Or,
technomancer.
Oh,
uh,
because the technomancer was taken from him? He wants to get him back?
his research stuff was stolen.
Yeah, stolen
Yeah.
And
is what I think we're thinking.
Okay.
if he's a cyberdoc that's been, you know, working with any number of shadowy people, there's a good chance he knows somebody that can get him in touch with somebody that can get him in touch with the team.
Okay.
Cyberdocs are pretty standard contacts that a lot of runners will have because it kind of helps to have somebody that can patch you back up sometimes.
All right. Yeah, I can piece that together in my head. So he would probably be up front that trying to work out how to actually present it to the group.
Yeah, well, here's an angle you can work on. We haven't done a huge number of runs, but they have all kind of been helping people out runs. So maybe the team has a very minor reputation of helping people rather than just being in it for the money. So maybe that's why this team comes up. Larry is also a giant scumbag, so maybe Larry owes this guy money, and he's either paying the team in exchange, as like maybe he owes the guy, let's say, I don't know, 100,000 million for some job or whatever. But instead, he's going to get them this team to do the thing, and he's only going to pay the team like 25. So, giant scumbag. He's great though.
Yeah, but like how to actually get the job there, it's more about what the Johnson's going to tell them. So he's going to say, "Hey, I've had my research stolen. It's a person." Is he going to tell them it's a technomancer? Is he going to what is he actually
My
going to
thought
tell them?
process is that he doesn't know it's a technomancer, or if he does, he doesn't know that there's there's something still alive left in there. You know, it's like um, maybe it was another team who the technomancer got shot, and uh, their medic for whatever reason was like, I can't do anything for him, and they maybe this is their street doc contact that they sold him to, because it's like, well, he's dead, but he was an organ donor, so
Gotcha.
you know.
Okay. Yeah, I'm sure there's a whole lot of reasons to experiment on people that are not going to be coming back.
Right.
So I think I like the idea of him not knowing it was a techno, thinking, okay, yeah, you're brain dead. We're going to test. Maybe it's even a CDC thing, and they're testing out different diseases,
Could be. It could.
things that'd be completely miserable.
You could go darker, and the reason he doesn't have arms and legs or like eyes and ears is because they were all cyber, and it has been removed from him and sold. Because used wear's got to come from somewhere,
Hmm.
and this was just the medical waste that was left over that he got uh, to tweak with.
Could they be using him kind of like a BioWare farm? Like, how does BioWare happen? I know they grow it. Could
You could
shadier
probably do
places?
something like that. Maybe he's working to try and develop a new thing, and he's using this torso as a, you know, he's raising. You got to raise your cyber technology, Bioware skill somewhere, right?
Yeah,
Maybe that's what he's doing. Maybe he's just practicing.
I kind of like that. He's got some kind of fancy, cutting-edge BioWare experiment that's in this torso. Uh, the rest has been cut up and farmed out for whatever parts and money he
That
can
could even
get.
be the actual thing. The Bioware itself could be the product that he wants back. There was a run that a friend of mine did once. He said it was a real milk run because the job was to go and steal a BioWare muscle augmentation, like a prototype.
Mhm.
Are you familiar with a Belgian blue?
I am not.
Okay, let me do a quick Googling, and I will put this up here. Do. Copy image location. So this is a Belgian blue, and
Oof.
imagine that is the thing that you have to steal.
Yeah.
Because it's a cow, it is a milk run.
Boo. Or should I say moo?
You should say moo.
Oh,
Okay.
But it's, here's 1,200 pounds of muscle. And,
Yeah, good luck.
And good, exactly. And your job is to get it out of here. Have a nice day. Not only muscle, but like inconvenient muscle. Because you can't talk to it. You could, if you knock it out, you still got 1,200 pounds of moo.
Yeah.
So that was that was the milk run. It was great.
Fair enough.
So maybe he's got some, I don't know, like a pancreas or some other kind of thing that he's messing with that's in there. Which, in theory, um, could get removed from the torso and then kill the guy. Yeah, he could be like a, what is it? Type O is your blood type that anybody can take.
Uh,
mhm.
one of them is.
think
So
O is the universal.
so
Yeah.
maybe he's just a type O torso. So that's why he's growing this Bioware in there, is because it's easier on the implementation process for another customer.
Yeah, but I feel like if the players have the option of just removing whatever organ and then killing the guy, that makes it too easy of a decision.
It sure does, but um,
I guess that again that comes into, do we want to give players that kind of out for critical thinking, or do we want to close off that avenue?
it it kind of becomes a situation of like, what do we want to do here? Do we want to force that moral conversation to exist, or do we want to have a run where they get to the end and it's like, oh, that's not what I was expecting?
I really want to have that moral quandary
Okay,
between the party.
so either
We're
we take the
like, maybe the BioWare just can't survive without being connected to a human at this point in
or
time.
or we twist it. Maybe he wants to live, but the organ that is being grown is integral to staying alive. So when the doctor takes it out, he'll die. You know, he had a whole bunch of cyber before. Maybe that's why he has no limbs now. He could get more.
Fair enough.
So you just flip that back the other direction. So lots of interesting things.
No matter what you plan, they're always going to do something you never expected.
Oh, I know.
That's why I don't plan.
I'm trying not to plan too much. It's just I have the reveal I want to give them. I want to give them something to chew on, and then however they go with it, and however they get there, that's fine.
Right.
Um,
So the things I think you need to think up is, who is your Johnson and what does he do, and what information you want to impart there. The second thing is, who has it, because there's a couple of different places that could take it, and what that means.
And I think depending on who you choose as the one that took it, that's where you're going to get stuck in your analysis paralysis and long-term planning. Because if you make it somebody really difficult, or they perceive it as really difficult, it'll bog down there.
And in this situation, I'll be around to kind of kick them in the pants and keep it going. Don't worry about
Yes, thankfully, there
Yeah.
will be somebody to help you do that. But that doesn't happen in every game.
it. True.
Also, clocks. You can always use a clock.
Yeah, I need to make a video about Blades in the Dark, don't I?
You do.
Blades in the Dark is so good.
Because clocks are good.
You could. Here's a thing that you could do to help with the analysis paralysis. We talked about the Iron Lung machine. It could have an internal power supply of some kind that, when it reaches however long you want to from now, the experiment is lost.
yeah, that could work. Like, whoever took him didn't know he needed a certain kind of care, and there's a half-life that either the experiment's returned by or the experiment's scrubbed. Some nature like that.
Hmm.
Yeah. And it's like, that also gives them the, and we could talk about clocks at another time to go in with that, because like, as you guys, well, let me ask you, when I put that little red pie up on our last run, did you feel like that added to your urgency in any way?
For me personally, I had read through the Clocks article you linked us a couple times, so I knew and understood it could mean pretty much anything you wanted it to mean, up to and including just filling it for the sake of filling it. I didn't feel any particular sense of urgency based on the clock. I felt it more because Hex was kind of acting like a clock in that instance, where the
Yeah, he
longer
noted
he
that.
had to stay, but I definitely saw in the other players that they were getting anxious as you filled it up.
Which is interesting because it's like just a small psychological thing that's going on.
You never even brought it to their attention. You just kind of dropped it there on the table. And when they asked about it, you just said, "Yeah, that's a thing."
Don't worry about it. What's going to go wrong? It's notes for me.
Yep. You let each player's own imagination force them into action. And that was really cool. Very clever. Like I said, even if it wasn't a consequences meter like you were intending it to be, it just being there changed the entire dynamic.
Because I'm manipulating you.
Well, somebody has to force us to do something, right?
Yeah. And that's another thing that could just kind of help kind of push people along. Um, but yeah, no. Is there anything else you wanted to bring up, talk about, either of you? I'm hearing silence.
So Dante, you're saying you really want the big moral quandary for the group.
That's been a discussion in Discord probably since our first run of, well, I don't want to hurt anyone, I don't want to kill anyone, and then Bamce comes in and says, yeah, but you want money, and you don't get paid good money for doing jobs everybody wants to do. So I feel like the group in general kind of needs to get prodded into making that greater decision as far as where we lie on that. But also, and this goes back into making it so somebody's paying his life savings to try and get this research experiment back. That is going to, I feel, make it easier for the group to make that moral decision and maybe get some more bonding between the group. So I think it's going to serve a lot of good for the group dynamic as a whole, more so
You think it's
than,
going to solidify your group?
yes.
What
Right
if it
now-
polarizes your group?
Well, we're already kind of polarized. Like,
What if it expands that? As a GM, how do you then bring that group back together?
I have no idea.
You ready for the answer?
You just, yes.
Don't?
Not your problem.
Yeah.
Really?
It is not on the GM to have a reason for these characters to work together. If you cannot think of a reason why character X would work with character Y, maybe character X needs to retire, and you come back in with character Z.
Yeah.
So the GM can wreak havoc, put the group in this situation that can cause them to polarize, separate. But it's not the GM's responsibility to repair that. It's still up to the players.
So, character drama, good. Player drama,
Yes.
bad.
Exactly.
So, as long as it stays with character drama, then I don't see it as a problem.
Yeah.
Because that is kind of what we're playing here for. It, like, if the world was going to end if you didn't all work together, then, well, I guess you're all going to work together no matter how much you hate that other person. So we have a much smaller scale. What happens if the group here doesn't like working with each other for some reason? Well, as long as it's character drama, we can work that out to figure out what is the dividing point. What is the contention? Is it just murder? And is that something they can work out in character that they don't have to worry about? If it is something more than that, and the team is really split, it's, okay, how do you want to work this out, guys? If it's split evenly, it becomes a little bit more of an issue, because then it's like, all right, who do we force into re-rolling and that kind of stuff. Thankfully, I know a couple of people have a giant pile of concepts that they're like, man, this seems awesome. This seems awesome. So hopefully, those players have the option to um, would take the higher road to be like, you know what, Dante's the one that has a problem with this. Dante will walk away. I'll bring in some other character that doesn't have a problem with this.
Oh, I'll happily reroll. It doesn't matter to me.
Whereas if it's 3-on-1 or whatever on one, it's like as a table, I'm not going to inconvenience, and that's the wrong word for the situation that I'm trying to portray here. I'm not going to force X minus one people to do something because of one
One.
person,
Yeah.
because that's
Like,
not fair.
if Dante is the only one that has a problem with this, Dante is the one that goes, because that's just math.
Yeah, and as
No,
long
I
as
understand that.
Dante's player is okay, then hey, everything works out. Think of it like a TV show when the characters on the TV show get wrapped up in some kind of drama and they start fighting, and then suddenly in the next season the writers are like, you know what, that didn't test well with our screen audiences. Let's just write that character out of the show, and we just never come back to him.
I
So,
think I'm thinking, I'm sorry, go ahead.
no, go ahead, you first.
I'm thinking as new GMs, when you inadvertently cause a schism within your group, I think a new GM kind of starts to freak out a bit. Like,
How do you deal with
how
that?
do I repair this? How do I I've just now lost control of my table.
Communication and trust.
Well, for me, my only GMing experience so far has been in groups of IRL friends, so we've all had very similar outlooks in the first place. So I haven't had to worry about that, but in the last few years, I've realized my groups of IRL friends are flaky and unreliable. So,
um,
I guess my greater or idea now going into this is, as a GM, do you present them with a run like this that could be either polarizing or could group them up to try and force the group to decide where they are so we can address it and adjust early on? Or do you try and give them things that aren't going to force that kind of dilemma to just keep things easy?
so let me roll back to the previous question about the new GMing thing.
Oh, sorry.
I shot in there with trust and communication, and that's what it is. Like if you see the table breaking down into a lot of that things that starts to bridge from character to player, you stop. You're like, hold on, guys, let's take five. Let's go get a smoke, get a drink, whatever. We're gonna come back and we're gonna talk about this as players, not as characters. To be like, if this isn't something that you guys wanted to, because let's be honest, this is some questionable grounds with which to explore. You're talking about some body horror stuff. You're talking about human experimentation. You're talking about the rights of organs and things that are sort of not a lot. It's a lot. It's heavy. And if the table starts to escalate over that, stop. You guys have, you know, if we can talk about this in a calm way, that's fine. If you guys want, we can stop right now, put this all to the side. You guys will get paid as though you completed the run, and we'll never speak of it again. And that's it. Because you don't want to.
It's not worth the drama.
It's not worth the player
Yeah.
drama, no.
Yeah.
You don't want to be like, okay, well, so you guys turn him in, or you guys kill him, and the doctor doesn't pay you, and you guys get notoriety on it. Because now you made that situation of almost player drama, and now you're punishing them for it. And that's only going to make it worse. That's going to infringe on that trust, because now it's like, we thought we knew what we were getting into, but now we're expressing ourselves and we're going to get punished for it. It's like, no, hold on. We're not. We're gonna give you the nuyen so that everybody who wanted to complete the job still gets paid. We're gonna give you the karma because you're gonna get karma anyway. That's how getting karma works. And we're gonna put it over here, and we're we're not going to reference it. I'm not going to give you notoriety. There's going to be no public awareness. We don't even need to know what happened with it. The run is done. It's gone. It's moved away. And you guys from there can reevaluate as a table without the stress of that situation on your characters hanging over you as to where the boundaries on your table lie for different subjects. Like this is a heavy subject. You guys don't want to get involved in these kind of subjects? All right, we won't do it anymore. We'll stay on the lighter side of things. We'll be rescuing CEOs' daughters and infiltrating bachelor parties, that kind of thing. Plenty of other things to do without having to worry about body horror.
Okay, what about Dante's question then?
I forget what Dante's question was because I went on a large
This
tangent
is
there.
like third their third run as a group. Is this too early to present them with something that could polarize or potentially bring them together and group them?
Given as it's been an ongoing discussion, I
On
think it's
Discord.
fine because this kind of puts it to bed.
Okay.
In this particular situation, I have kind of preempted you a little bit because we've got the Texas Red situation that you guys may or may not do anything with. It's on you. And as this will go public after that, the Texas Red situation is going to be interesting because I didn't approach you guys with, hey, I'm a Johnson. I want you to go collect this bounty for me. The bounty is just there. And you guys are the ones that are making the decision on whether or not to act on it.
I cannot wait for that to unfold.
It'll be an interesting situation.
I hate how much I don't know, but I have to sit and listen about. I hate it.
There are some things there that can be like I can easily reveal, because it won't make that much of a difference. Like, in the Texas Red
No,
situation,
no, don't.
okay,
No,
that's
don't.
fine.
He wants to be surprised.
I prefer the surprise part. I hate being able to kind of make things out through the curtain, but not enough to know.
Sure,
It's
but that may change a little bit of what you want to do with this because there could easily be some moral implications there because the bounty is for him, but there's almost no way you are separating him from his friend, and his friend is a giant murder troll. So,
I mean, that's an easy decision for Dante. As long as Texas Red has deserved his bounty.
well, we'll see what happens. I'm sure it's just for cattle rustling or something.
Oh, of course. He just got caught belting his legs to the cattle in front of him.
Something like that. So there'll be some of that, and if they don't jump on the Texas Red thing, which I think you guys are gonna, so that'll be. You've asked a lot of questions about how you find out more about that situation. I have
Yeah.
another run. I have two runs. I don't want to say lined up because I have a giant brain of them. I have two that are at the forefront that I will present to you guys, and in that situation, it is very much me presenting it. It's like, okay, here's the run that's offered up to you guys, which is a different situation because it's like, yo, here's your guy who's actually asking you to do a thing. Which, when a guy is asking you to go out and murder a dude, that's different than you being like, oh, hey, if we murder that dude, he's worth a bunch of money.
Yeah.
So there's different morality and there's different player GM interactions there.
Okay. Before I forget, I have another idea for this run I was talking
Sure.
about. We already kind of have a hook out there about Hex and a mystery techno. Is that something you might hook into that, or is that too heavy-handed and you want to let Hex explore and develop that as a contact, or?
That's up to you. If you want to use that as a, like, if Hex makes contact, recognizes the other resonance thing about it, you are more than welcome to do that. I was kind of putting it out there because people sometimes forget that other people in the world have decks or are technomancers and that kind of thing. And they're like, oh, all right, we're going to the Johnson meet. I'm going to look and see if there's any cyber decks in the air. It's like, oh, there is. I'm going to hack it because clearly it's the Johnson's Matrix defense. And it's some dude downloading a bunch of porn, with his agent, just like, here, go download me all the porn.
Well, I'm less curious about this run as in specific, and more about, again, greater GM strategy.
Right.
Would it be more important to develop that as a contact, give it to Hex, or maybe you start building that up and then that's your in to making this a run 5 sessions down the line? Or does it just get too heavy-handed with trying to make it tie into too many things?
So part of my goal here with the group is to throw a lot of hooks out there for people to make use of later. I haven't actually talked to Hex about the Technomancer that they ran into. They could be a contact. They could be part of the... There was talk about doing a goofy thing for a submersion. They could be part of that. Or they could just be, like, somebody out there on the Matrix that you know. That's why I had you guys put, like, the Spells Are Us lady on your sheet as like a 1/1, because this way when you look, you're like, man, all right, what are we going to do? You can look down your sheet and there's a physical reminder on the sheet of, oh, hold on, this is somebody that exists that we could go interact with.
Yeah. Okay.
So, was there anything else you wanted to pick the old brain about?
I think that's it for right now.
Sure. Jupiter?
I mean, any thoughts, ideas, comments, advice, anything really? At some point soon, I'll be GMing a group of some flavor.
Right. I don't think I have anything in particular. A lot of it comes down to knowing your players and kind of establishing that trust and in a situation where they feel like maybe the trust is infringed upon, communicating and seeing where the deal is, that kind of thing. Like, okay, what is it about this that you guys don't want to explore? And then backing off from it. Because rather than forcing them to follow through on it in some fashion, I feel like backing off of it and just being like, okay, that's done, helps to re-embolden that trust, because it's like, I'm not going to screw you over in any way about it. There was a run with Group 2 that I did where it was the first run that you guys had. They were going to be hired to protect a guy that was going to be assassinated. Only the guy in their game was a humanist spokesperson, and they were a bunch of meta variants, or not meta variants, but different meta types, non-humans.
Mm-hmm.
And their one buddy who wasn't there for the meet was a troll who really didn't like racists. And then they were like, when I gave them the details of the job, it was like, oh, Grog is going to kill us. So they wanted to start backing out of the job to not piss him off, because it's like, our friend wouldn't appreciate us saving the life of a horrible racist.
Yeah.
So I didn't punish them for that. We went through a completely different scene and a situation that involved a gun battle on the freeway. But in that situation, it turned out that there was a team of people that were after the Johnson, because the Johnson was a technomancer. And it worked out great because, they attack, and, the one guy's like, get the technomancer, and the technomancer team's like, oh shit, they're after me. When in reality, they're having this fight on the back, and this guy's up front that kind of was on a motorcycle, went around them, and he's shooting through the windshield at the Johnson. He shoots him twice before somebody else takes him down, and it's like, if you guys didn't stop that guy from shooting the Johnson again, he was going to die because he'd gotten shot a bunch, and they would have gotten out of there because they weren't actually after you. The world is much larger than just you guys. So instead of going on the run, they save this guy's life. They get him as a contact. They get a couple of karma, and they have a much more interesting situation. And they still got out of the run that they weren't really feeling about doing. Um, the I would have a because I always tell people like I don't put a job in front of you without something else in mind that can work out. Like I can get another job for you because in my case I've done a lot of Shadowruns. I can just rerun something that I've already ran. It's not a big deal for me. Maybe have a second idea in case I get into this job and I'm like, you know what? Thanks but no thanks. I'm not feeling this. So this way they're not like shit, you know. I I came here to play a game and I'm forced into it. And if you don't have the time to come up with another one, or you spend a lot of time fleshing this out, not a problem. We can hot potato the seat, and then we can do you next week or something like that. That's part of the other reason I'm here.
Fair enough.
But I feel like you'll have after we do the next run or the Texas Red thing, I feel like you'll have a better idea of what you're walking into as far as morality, and that's obviously I can't talk to you about that because of spoilers.
Appreciate it.
Yeah. Um,
You're very lucky, Dante. Very lucky to have this opportunity. I wish I had it.
you can't tell
yeah.
me like that. You're gonna make me blush.
Shut up.
Well,
I
so I kind of stalked you a little bit on Reddit when I was first getting into Shadowrun because it
Oh,
seemed
man.
like every post I saw where I was like, "That's a good question." This guy came in and typed out like a 1,000-word essay on how things are that explains it very well. And eventually I started looking at the username. And
Oh,
then I
man.
saw that you do shadow walking. I'm like, fuck, man, I really want to get in on that. That'd be great. And then like a week later, I started trying to run my group, and that fell apart. And the week after that, I saw the post for Shadow Walking 3.
Yeah.
And I was just like, oh, Bamce Senpai! Me!
Oh man.
Choose me, Senpai!
oh my gosh.
And then I did. Yeah, no. Now that's recorded forever, so I'll have
Oh.
that to point at whenever anybody else gives me grief about, because I am kind of a giant asshole on the Reddit, and that's fine.
Kinda?
Yeah, kinda. Sometimes I'm actually very
Kinda?
helpful.
Well,
You are. Sometimes you are.
there's a big difference. Like, so far, I haven't seen you be an asshole so much as seen you be very direct and not take time to fluff it up for people. And people who can't handle that view that as being as an asshole. But I just appreciate not having to deal with all the nonsense.
Yeah, but we're getting a little off topic. So if
We're totally off topic. Let's.
Yeah,
I
well.
could talk about how great I am all night.
No, we don't need to. Let's move along. Let's get back to helping Dante be a good GM.
Um,
Oh.
I think I've got enough to finish fleshing this out, and obviously maybe change a little bit depending on what happens with those other runs you're talking about.
Yep.
Um,
I'm excited to see
sh-
what happens.
Me
I'm
too.
excited to keep picking your brains.
Great. I'm not using them, so it's a good thing somebody else does.
And again, open invitation for either of you. If you ever see anything or have comments or thoughts or ideas, or you just want to tell me I'm being an asshole, anytime, please drop me a message. I'd love to listen or explore concepts. All that's great, especially because I can get awfully bored at work sometimes.
Yeah. So
I try to limit my interaction on that board because I don't want to sway anything. I also just want you guys to be your own little group. Today I was a little more talky on there, but
I've said it before. I think you should be talking a whole lot more personally.
so
well, you guys chose Monday night. So I can't really participate on Mondays.
but
It's all
as we're horribly off topic now,
Yes.
I'm gonna go ahead and close out the video and thank you guys for hanging out. I look forward to seeing what the group has to say about this video after I make it go live after we do this run. And if those of you out in the YouTube's land kind of get anything out of it, please let us know. I'm sure Dante will have it bookmarked or favorited or something, so we can always come back and see comments or whatever. But I need to go save this troll from being a baddie. So, see you guys.
Take it easy.
Bye.